Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video I'll be reviewing the DM's Guild Encounter Compendium Saltmarsh Encounters, designed by MT Black, along with Ashley Warren, James Haeck, James Introcaso, and Rich Lescouflair for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your DM's Guild shopping, supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to my platinum patrons Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, and Rivzung, and gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Numa, Marcos de Vicente, Gilberto, Sean AK, Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. I have previously reviewed Ghosts of Saltmarsh with a Roll20 review. I have not played it. So I am familiar with it, and I do know that every adventure that is published includes some encounters, but it's never enough. And let's face it, you're not going to necessarily love all the encounters in the book. Some of them are a little more than just you turn a corner and a creature appears, essentially. Encounters try to do a little bit more than that, and to varying degrees of success. Now, when we say encounters, it's very important to note these are not full-blown adventures. These are not even one-shot adventures or missions or anything of that nature. These are very much encounters. So picture usually the back of a lot of the hardcover officially published books that have like a random encounter section where it's like, hey, you know, it's usually like a D20 table or a D100 or something. It's like if we roll this, then this encounter happens. And yeah, a lot of times it's a little more than just a fight, but hopefully there's a little more context about it to make it a little more interesting. But the idea of an encounter, it is maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, pretty easy, and it should be themed to the adventure for the most part. So like the creatures or the humanoids, whatever there is there, and it makes sense that they're there in the context of the story or the location that the adventure takes place in. So Saltmarsh Encounters obviously is designed for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Now you could use it for any nautically themed adventure, or even if you're not going to go on a ship, technically you could do it for like a coastal adventure. Kind of an advantage disadvantage here in that there are 60 encounters included here. They are divided up evenly into thirds, with 1/3 of them being just town encounters, so various towns that they would the party would travel to, including Saltmarsh. The other third are coastal encounters, so along the beach, essentially. And the final third is actual ship encounters. I was kind of thinking initially that that is what we would get for a nautically themed encounter, which would be all ship encounters. I think that would be something I would desperately look for, because it's pretty hard to do. Like, you're trying to come up with something that's not just there's a shark over here and there's, you know, merfolk or Sawagan or whatever are clambering up the ship ready to attack you. There's a ghost ship. You know, there's only like so many things, half a dozen things everybody uses for nautically themed adventures. I was hoping to get a little bit more of those, but I was glad to see a pretty nice variety here. So we're going to go over kind of briefly just the ones that I particularly enjoyed, I think. I do like the layout here. It's very professionally used, great cover art. I think this is all just stock pictures used throughout, which is fine. You know, it's still very much an official, you know, the official font, the official presentation layout, the tables, the colors, all of that. I like seeing that. It looks good. You know, there's a reason it's used a lot. It's because it looks good. It is a bummer I don't think we get any original art here. It's just pretty much all the stock art, but what's used in there kind of fits what is in the text at least. All right, ones that I enjoyed. Drink Up, which is a Fountain of Youth kind of situation. I love that you see a bloated corpse with next to it, so automatically the players already probably should be wary of any kind of like fountain of water or anything. You know, is there a water weird in there? What's going on? Everybody should be weary. You put a corpse next to it, and now you're real weary. If you drink it once, you roll from a D4 from a minor beneficial effect. You drink it twice, you roll another D4 for a secondary major beneficial effect. And then if your players are really wanting to roll the dice and they drink it from a third time, then they get a major detrimental effect. And that's when the really good things start happening. They can adhere to your lips, and you start drowning from it. You can have a giant octopus emerge from the cup. You can just vomit up and take damage all the time. These are really, really cool. And one thing I really love about this encounter booklet, throughout every encounter, almost all of them include a D4 that change either the enemies or the items or the motivation of what's going on, the situation. It's really impressive how a lot of these encounters, as small as they are actually malleable into multiple things. So for example, one of these encounters, Dead Whale, the dead whale could be either have a bunch of sharks feasting on it, or it's got like treasures stitched up in its belly, or the whale explodes whenever somebody gets near it, or the whale isn't dead at all and it's just sleeping and it attacks as a killer whale. Those are obviously 4 very different encounters within the same encounter, so that's kind of cool. It's you're getting 60 encounters, but you're actually getting, I think, a lot more of that, because a lot of these encounters can change depending on which one you want to go with. And I'm the kind of person, I think a lot of DMs, you're not actually going to roll the d4. You're just going to look and see which one of these is the most interesting to you, and that's the one you're going to go with. Or maybe you'll keep one in your back pocket and be like, all right, if my players are particularly powerful or feeling cocky, then I might, unleash the exploding whale upon them. I should mention these are specifically all tier 1 encounters, which means levels 1 through 4. And it mentions the fact that level 1 players will obviously struggle with a lot of these things because level 1 PCs just suck pretty much, whereas a level 4 party will be able to pretty much solve most of these encounters without any issue. So there's a very small window of opportunity that these are used in. But I think a lot of adventures also tend to take place, and obviously everybody goes through that tier 1, so it's probably the best way to do it. But you should be aware, if you've got, let's say, a level 9 party who's currently on a ship for a chunk of time, and you're thinking, oh, there could be some good water encounters here. These are really not meant to have the whole gamut of a player's career. These are just strictly tier 1 encounters. Landlocked was one I enjoyed, which was a group of merfolk are caught in a lagoon, having washed up there on a shore, and they can't get back to the ocean. And then this is another good example of a d4. You can roll the d4 to see what other enemies or creatures appear as the merfolk actually try to have the players help them. So it's either a bunch of bandits looking to capture the merfolk, peritons looking to eat them, giant toads who want the land, have just kind of muscled in, or a bunch of swarm of ravens who are just driven into a frenzy by a nearby sea hag. Again, 4 very different encounters, but all within the same encounter, which is very cool to see. Street performance, I liked that one just because this seems like a really fun role-playing opportunity for a lot of players. And again, it's got the d4 table. A mage can use Mage Hand and Prestidigitation to perform magic tricks while the spy picks people's pockets. That obviously has a great ramifications for use for the party, very, very smartly. 2 gladiators sparring on the street, and people can bet on them. 4 acolytes are performing a hymn, and they've got a bucket. Players can donate. And there's a lover's quarrel between 2 nobles. So I really like the first 2 especially, so street performance is a really fun one. There's a baby owlbear with tiny growler here. It just comes out of the nearby woods, I guess. Not really a town encounter, is it? Heavily wooded area. Kind of, I guess maybe it's a coastal encounter. Unfortunately, the entire encounter booklet is not organized by encounter, but instead organized purely alphabetical, which is kind of a bummer. I wish at least they had been divided up, and I know everybody does alphabetical, that's fine. I'm always a stickler for organize them by location, because when I'm looking for an encounter, I'm primarily going to be looking at a location first, and then I want to look at the encounter. So especially if I'm really reading this thing looking for, okay, my players are on the boat, I need a cool encounter, then the best way for me to do that is just to go back to this D20 table and then have to look up all the aquatic encounters, and I'm flipping pages, virtual pages, back and forth. I would have much rather had it been organized by encounter, and then I could have the whole chunk and then really just look down that whole chunk of, okay, here are all the ship encounters, or here are all the coastal encounters, that kind of thing. Kind of a minor quibble, but it does matter to me for organization purposes. Anyway, the baby owlbear, very cute, cool to see. Obviously, a lot of players can get a lot of mileage out of a baby owlbear. Some might not get any, but you could. I do like the fact that it's actually used the stat block as a mastiff, because it is a baby, so you can't just give your players an owlbear necessarily that easily. But it's very cute the way it comes out and starts kind of basically barking at the players, and of course the right maybe animal handling check or something could have this creature fall in love with the players and so forth. Nice to see. Sea snakes on 17. There's also a lot of goofy puns used here. What the shells say. You've got whale is pretty good. There's a lot of references to nautical stuff, so need a bigger boat. Jaws, all good stuff. So this is a good example of the fact that Jaws is literally just a giant shark begins hunting the party. Need a bigger boat is just you come across a bunch of creatures battling a bigger creature. I don't know why we didn't just go with the whole Jaws premise. That actually would have been a good encounter. You see a bunch of humanoids on a boat that's half destroyed and a giant shark attacking them, and they need your help. That's the Jaws encounter. Do that as an encounter. That would have been really cool. Just a chance for players to be able to save the day and fight a giant shark boss monster would be pretty fun. Anyway, I like the sea snakes one though. It's a bunch of snakes in the ocean coming after the players, and again, the D4 table determines they could either be what is the sea hag? A lot of sea hag usage here, by the way. She can hold them on leashes, and she essentially like comes up out of the water like almost like a chariot with these sea snakes. Or the sea snakes just board the vessel at night and attack the players. Or they could be, I really like this one, they're rushing, you notice they're fleeing a bunch of steam, and it turns out there's a salamander thrashing about behind them who got teleported into the water from a wizard, and he's trying to, they're trying to get on the boat, as are the snakes trying to flee the salamander. That's just a really random event that happens, but is at least more memorable. Other things is a quick montage of stuff I wrote down. I really like the goofier ones. So for example, there's a laser pistol in a box that players can find called Gift from the Gods. It's only got 10 shots in it, and the rules are technically in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but obviously that one's real crazy. There's a elf who is sailing a ship made of hair, who wants to buy the a PC's hair, and you can give them a reward for that, which is really goofy. One of the encounters is just things falling on players' heads, including somebody like emptying a chamber pot or a seagull pooping on somebody. That's barely an encounter, but okay, sure, we'll go with it. And again, it's kind of funny. There's a message in a bottle, of course, very classic, that can lead to different adventure hooks within Ghost of Saltmarsh, which is a good idea, or it could simply contain like a spell scroll or something. One of the crazier ones is there's like an Ark of the Covenant style ark being carried by a bunch of skeletons in the bottom of the ocean, and if you open that ark up, a coffin or whatever, then you have to make a Constitution saving throw, take a shit ton of damage, or you can help yourself to the treasure inside, and anybody that dies becomes a skeleton that then carries around this ark, which that's just kind of a neat idea. So I like the really, really goofy random ones because those seem more memorable to me. But I did wish there were some more interesting ship ones in general, because I just feel like that is a big hole that needs to be filled with, in terms of at least the encounters that I can think of. That aren't just the obvious ones, that aren't just, you know, a giant shark attacks, or a bunch of, like I said, Sawagan, or there's pirates, or there's a ghost ship. Like, those are all pretty much in here, but they all just feel like kind of standard and obvious fare. There's only a couple ones, the ones that I mentioned, that I feel like really stand out for me. But thankfully, because there are 60 here, there's enough here that's good, I think. We also get a small appendix with monsters. I believe these are only included if they aren't in the monster manual, and I think they're in other, yeah, it even says new monsters up here in the monster manual. I believe these are from other sources, though. I'm pretty sure I recognize Nereid, Sea Spawn, and Deep Scion from other adventures, either hardcovers or things like Valos or Mordenkainen's or something like that. So I think, I mean, I'm glad they're included here, but I don't think any of these are original. What is original, I believe, are the new magic items that are included, which is really cool to see, because these are themed to nautical adventures, and they are specifically designed for low-level play. One of the biggest complaints from the original Dungeon Master's Guide is there weren't enough like common and uncommon magic items. Basically, magic items specifically for lower-level PCs that didn't just horribly break apart the game or something. So that's what these provide, and they have a lot of cool you know, sea themes. There's an orb of direction that tells you where north is. Chitinous armor, looks like a crab armor, lets you breathe underwater. An anklet of walking lets you walk on water. You know, things that would be very useful if you are around water, essentially. So I do like seeing that stuff, and it's a cool addition to have that there. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Saltmarsh encounters. Pros: 60 themed encounters themed for Saltmarsh, divided by town, coastal, and aquatic locations. Pro: most encounters feature a D4 table to further customize the enemies, situations, or motivations. It is a really, really cool thing that I have not seen. I mean, I've seen encounters do this before, but not to this degree, to where almost every single encounter on here has a D4 table that vastly changes what is going on in that encounter, which is pretty cool, to where you could almost reuse some of these encounters multiple times and just do different types of the D4 that's listed there, which is pretty impressive. And Pro, I like the final appendix that has 7 new low-level magic items, which is cool to see. Cons, the fact that only a third of the encounters are designed for ship travel, and they tend to be the weaker encounters, in my opinion. Obviously, this review is all my opinion, but for the ones that I was really looking at, the ones that stood out for me, they weren't necessarily the ocean encounters. A lot of the ones that I was really enjoying were the just town encounters that were just kind of more generic in nature. I was hoping to get a little more out of the actual ocean, because when I picture Ghosts of Saltmarsh, when I picture encounters and events for that campaign, I specifically want ocean stuff. That's what I'm looking for, and I feel like the ocean stuff was not quite as interesting as the actual just like port town stuff, which is okay. Final verdict, Saltmarsh Encounters features a solid and highly customizable collection of low-level, nautically themed events and challenges. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson, and you can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.